Many people believe that some things on the planet are good luck, like that rabbit's foot or maybe a shiny polished rock. But some people also believe that certain things can be cursed by spirits of the dead. Do cursed objects really exist? Let's find out as we take a look at 5 cursed objects nobody can explain. Before we begin, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get notified every day for more amazing content. With that being said, let's begin. Number 5, the Annabelle doll. If you haven't seen the movie The Conjuring, then you might want to put that on your list of movies to see. It's based on true events. The Spine Chiller tells the story of a New England family who begins having encounters with spirits in their farmhouse. Throughout the 70s, the Perron family claimed to have lived The Conjuring. The family members were thrown out of their beds, ghosts kissed them in the middle of the night, and they were preyed upon by a spirit of a witch named Bathsheba Thayer. One of the creepiest parts of the truly scary Conjuring is the evil possessed doll called Annabelle. One of the children in the family, Donna, got Annabelle from her mother in 1970. Mom bought the used doll at a hobby store. Donna was a college student at the time and living with a roommate named Angie, and at first, neither thought the doll was anything special. But over time, they noticed Annabelle seemed to move on her own. At first, it was really subtle, just changed in position, the kind of things that could be written off as the doll being bumped or moved. But the movement increased, and within a few weeks, it seemed to become fully mobile. The girls would leave the apartment with Annabelle on Donna's bed and return home to find it on the couch. Their friend Lou hated the thing. He thought there was something deeply wrong with it, something evil, but the girls were modern women and didn't believe in that sort of thing. There must be an explanation, they reasoned. But soon, Annabelle's actions got even weirder. Donna began to find pieces of parchment paper in the house with messages written on it. "Help us," they would say, or "Help Lou." Just to make the whole thing that much creepier, nobody in the house had parchment paper. The escalation continued. Then, one night, Donna returned home to find Annabelle in her bed with blood on her hands. The blood, or some sort of red liquid, seemed to be coming from the doll itself. That was enough. Donna finally agreed to bring in a medium. The sensitive sat with the doll and told the girls that long before their apartment complex had been built, there had been a field on that property. A 7-year-old girl named Annabelle Higgins had been found dead in that field. Her spirit remained. And when the doll came into the house, the girl latched onto it. Eventually, the Warrens built a locked case for Annabelle, and she resides there to this day. The locked case seems to have kept the doll from moving around, but it seems like whatever terrible entity is attached to it is still there, waiting, biding its time, ready for the day when it can be set free. Number 4, the mystery of Uluru. Uluru, or Ayers Rock, is perhaps Australia's most internationally recognizable natural landmark and is sometimes referred to as the spiritual heart of Australia. In geological terms, Uluru is an inselberg, literally island mountain. An inselberg is a prominent isolated residual knob or hill that rises abruptly and is surrounded by extensive and relatively flat erosion lowlands in a hot, dry region. It's sometimes referred to as a monolith, but this is a term often avoided by geologists. The material of Uluru is mainly a type of sandstone called arkose. Perhaps that might unravel the mystery behind this geological site. Uluru as a whole is considered a sacred site, yet there are many sacred sites on and around Uluru itself. To an Indigenous Australian, if a place is considered sacred, then there are often rules on who can visit particular areas, which means that some places at Uluru can only be visited by initiated men and Indigenous women. Climbing or walking on Uluru is strongly discouraged by the Yankunytjatjara Jinjara people. It's not illegal due to an agreement with the Australian government, but the Indigenous people would prefer you to respect their customs and not climb on the rock. Taking photographs is also discouraged. A strange phenomenon has occurred in the last 20 or so years, where pieces of Uluru have inexplicably turned up in the mail sent back to the park with short letters apologizing for taking the stones and sand from their rightful place. Apparently, letters arrive on a daily basis every year with kilograms of rock and sand being returned. They've been given the name Sorry Rocks. Hundreds of visitors who casually pocketed chunks of the sacred landmark and took them home found that they brought nothing but bad luck, including illness, marriage breakups, and even death. National Rangers receive at least one package a day of what has been called sorry rocks pilfered from the landmark, now known by its indigenous name of Uluru. While many of the packages were accompanied by a simple apology for having stolen the stones in the first place, about a quarter contained details of personal tragedies. Is this rock formation cursed? Tell us what you think in the comments section below. Number 3. Thomas Busby's chair. Thomas Busby was a man who enjoyed the odd drink or 5. It was normal for him to be seen in his favorite pub, sitting in his favorite chair. Busby was not a man to be trifled with, though. A petty thief, he was often quick to acquiesce to his temper, and seldom did he resist the temptation to enter into a confrontation with someone. It was this bravado that cost him dearly in the summer of 1702. Busby's father-in-law was a man named Daniel Audie. According to local legend, Audie riled Busby up by using his chair without permission. When Busby found Audie sitting where he wasn't supposed to, a fight broke out between the two men. Audie threatened to return to Donati Hall, taking Mrs. Busby with him. Sometime later that same night, Tom Busby gained access to Donati Hall and ended the life of his father-in-law. Of course, Thomas Busby was linked to the crime. A quick trial found Tom Busby guilty as charged, and the sentence was death by hanging. As a show of leniency, though, he was granted a final request, and Busby chose to have a final drink and chose to sit in his renowned chair to have that final drink in. At some stage during the evening, Busby insisted that, quote, "Death shall come swiftly to anyone that dares to sit in my chair," minutes before he was led off to his execution. The first recorded victim of this apparent hex was an unnamed chimney sweep who had no other option but to use Busby's chair. It was the first time in some decades that it had been used, so perhaps no parlance was given to the ominous warning uttered by its former owner. Several minutes after finishing his break and returning to work, the unfortunate man fell off the roof to his death. Over the course of the next couple of centuries, people were dared to take the chance and use the chair. Not surprisingly, many refused. During World War II, however, numerous Air Force officers bravely accepted the challenge when put to them. Few failed to notice that all who did never returned home from the conflict. Sometime in 1967, a pair of RAF pilots took on the chair and lost when the car they were traveling in hit a tree. The landlord decided that enough was enough and had the chair removed from public display. As good as the chair had been for business, bringing in the curious and daredevils from miles around, it was only prudent that no other lives should be put at risk. The chair was taken down to the basement, where it remained for several years. Even this was not enough. A bricklayer was contracted to work on the pub one year, and seeing the chair tucked away in one corner of the basement, decided to rest on it. That very afternoon, he fell to his death. It would appear that nobody could use this chair and survive. The chair now rests in a museum where no one dares touch it. Number 2. Otzi, the Iceman. The discovery of a well-preserved mummy made by tourists while walking on a mountain pass in 1991 was undoubtedly one of the most significant archaeological finds of last century. Mystery has always surrounded the corpse, and some believe the remains to be cursed. While hiking in the Ötztal Alps in late summer of 1991, Helmut and Erika Simon, two German tourists, took an unmarked path across a glacier on the Austrian-Italian border. At 10,530 feet up, they discovered what they first thought to be the remains of a recently deceased mountaineer and soon alerted police. The body, frozen in ice up to its torso, was visited by police the next day, and an attempt was made to excavate it. But due to bad weather, the body was covered and its recovery was postponed. 2 days later, the remains were officially excavated in front of many people and taken to the University of Innsbruck. And it was there that the body was laid out with a number of instruments and clothes that had been found with the corpse. What they had before them was a well-preserved mummy. Much like the discovery of the pharaoh Tutankhamun, his tomb and its treasures in 1922, several people have died since Ötzi's discovery, and many have come to believe that the remains have a curse attached to them. 7 people who either discovered, recovered, or examined the remains are said to have died in, some say, bizarre or mysterious circumstances. Helmut Simon, the German man who discovered Ötzi, is said to be the 4th victim of this curse, as he apparently went missing in October 2004. His body was found in a stream after falling 300 feet off an Austrian peak. A forensic pathologist who was said to have placed Ötzi in a body bag with his bare hands was said to have died in a mysterious car accident a year after the discovery, making him the first so-called victim. An avalanche was said to have killed the original mountain guide who led police to the body, and a molecular archaeologist who identified blood on the weapons and clothing found with the Iceman was said to have been diagnosed shortly afterward with a rare blood disease that took his life within the next 2 years. Number 1. James Dean's car. James Dean was 24 when he perished after his beloved silver Porsche 550 Spyder crashed into a Ford Tudor couple in Cholame, California on September 30th, 1955. The Porsche gained a reputation for being cursed after reports that those who came into contact with it suffered accidents. On September 23rd, 1955, while driving the car around Los Angeles, James met up with British actor Alec Guinness outside a restaurant. He showed the deeply superstitious Guinness the new Porsche. After the fatal accident, George Barris purchased the wrecked Porsche for $2,500. That is where the curse seems to have begun. As the car was being transported back to the shop, it slipped off the trailer it was being carried on and broke the leg of a mechanic. Barris sold the engine and drivetrain to Troy McHenry and William Eschrid. The two used parts to build cars of their own and were racing against each other with those parts in place. Henry lost control and slammed into a tree, the impact killing him immediately. Eschrid was driving his car and the wheels suddenly locked up for no apparent reason, sending the car rolling over in a turn. Eschrid was seriously injured in the crash. Due to all the incidents involving, quote, little bastard, Barris decided to hide the car, but was convinced by the California Highway Patrol to lend the cursed heap to a highway safety exhibit. The first exhibit, yeah, it's a story. Well, that one was unsuccessful, as the garage that housed the car caught on fire and burnt to the ground. Mysteriously, the car suffered virtually no damage from said fire. That's scary stuff. Alright, Top 5ers, if you haven't already, make sure to visit our other channel, The Brilliant, for even more interesting list videos that'll blow your mind. Oh, but I'm warning you, the videos over on The Brilliant are extremely addicting to watch as well. There'll be a link in the description to the channel, so make sure to come and visit us. Or you can go to our latest video popping up on screen right now. Oh, and have you visited thefinestpost.com to enjoy the most amazing articles you will ever get to read? If